So got everybody in. And we're going to begin warming up, and we don't need any props for the warm-up, but I'm going to invite you to come into a standing position for the beginning in our warm-up. And so just let yourself stand where your feet are about hip distance and begin to let your body spin. Just let your arms begin to rotate. And as you begin to move like this, you're going to notice some things about your body, about yourself, as you feel your rotation that may be happening all the way from your legs up into your chest. And some things may click or pop as you go. And that's a nice sort of loosening of the chest and the shoulder area and the back. So we're just warming ourselves up. We're also alerting ourselves to any problem areas that may be feeling a little strange, and we'll be keeping track of those during the class, make sure we do not overwhelm them. But now let's take the arms up and let the arms just fall down. So we're going to go up and down with those arms. You're going to feel that pull at the top of the shoulders. It's going to sort of nice, just get rid of stress and aggravation as well. Just throw it down. We'll do that all class long. No, we won't. All right, soften those knees. Rock back on your heels. Lose your balance. Lose it to the point where you have to regain. Back to the toes. Lose your balance a little bit. So we don't have wobble, so we're going to just lose our balance back and forth a little bit. So we're trying to instill in our body a need to crouch. We need to crouch to regain our balance. Your body may not know that. It may be, locking your knees, and that's a less effective way of recovery. So bend your knees, crouch a little bit. And then we're going to put one foot forward. We're going to bend and come forward and then go back. And we lose our balance this way so that it stimulates the body. It begins to work our balance center of our brain, but it's also working our core. So we're rocking back and forth, working our core. Now put the other foot in the forward position. And we're coming onto the toes, and then back onto those heels. And back and forth we go. Just losing our balance. And what's interesting, though, is when our feet are separated, we naturally have better balance. So do this. Put your feet together. Become a little bowling pin right there. Come up onto the toes, and it's very easy for us to lose our balance. Back onto the heels, very easy. If our feet are close together, much easier. And our recovery is going to require us to use structure in our core to recover from this action. Now try this just on one foot. The other toe could be just like touching, or you can lift it up. See if you can lift up and then come back. And boy, is that going to make our balance unwieldy. Remember, you don't actually want to fall down, so don't actually fall down. And then we'll do the other side. We will come up on the toe or go back onto the heel, and we'll work like that. Very good. Now, center of gravity is about a couple inches below the navel unless we change it, and so we're going to change it right now. We're simply just going to crouch down, and we're lightly going to touch the floor. And it's okay if your heels lift or if they don't. That's perfectly fine. You just come down. But if your body naturally did it one way with your heels lifting, can you do this with your heels not lifting? And if you did it with your heels not lifting, can you do it with heels lifting? But then we'll try this with one foot forward. We'll just come down and touch and back up again. And if your heels were down, then you try it just staying on the toes. Or if you were on your toes to the other side, then if you're on your toes doing it, then the next time you do it, you keep your heels down. And it changes the center of gravity. It lowers it. It moves it, which makes it harder to balance. Now we'll try this with our feet right next to each other in that bowling pin kind of position. We come down, and it's odd, but it does make it a little bit more difficult. I tried it with my heels down. I'll try it up on my toes. Good. But then we're going to try this on one foot, and it's good. Now everyone will figure out a way to do this, and you don't have to do it on one foot, but if you lift that foot up and you come down, often the leg swinging back behind you is a nice counterbalance to coming down. The leg swinging backward as you come down. Very good. Now let's warm up. We're going to be using certain muscles in our chest, and let's just get the chest warmed up. Let's put our palms together. I want us to sort of push them back and forth from side to side. Reminds me of that old Pong game I used to play on the computer a long time ago. Back and forth. Then we're going to take it up and then go forward and down. So I start out pretty close to myself. I go up, and then it's forward inhale, but I'm keeping pressure as I'm making this circle. But then I'm going to make a circle that's going to start on one side. I'm going to go up and out, and I'm going to start coming toward the midline. I'll go across the midline to the other side. I'm still keeping the pressure. And then I'm going to go the other way. And that's good. So we're feeling the pressure of the palms creating contraction of the chest. And I'm going to make a spiral up and around. Now, the pectorals are the main muscle, getting steadily further away as I go into the spiral. And then we just come from that point and we go back again. And that's good. And so the pectorals are going to be used, but we're also going to be using portions of our rotator cuff. Just go ahead and turn out your arms and turn them in. We sort of check, we warm them up, but we also check to make sure that these little bitty muscles are ready for action. And we'll warm up another way too. I'll have my arm right here. We'll go an inward, and then we'll create an outward rotation. Inward is pretty common. The outward is not so common, and you may not have a lot of range of motion in the outward movement. And then we'll do the other side. So we create an inward and an outward, and that's good. Great. And then one more. All right, so the feet about hip distance. I just want us to lean our weight to one side. You can take the other leg off as a counterbalance. You can spread your arms. So we just do a side tilt. And then we go to the other side, just creating a balance with a side tilt. And that's good. All right, so that's warmed us up a little bit, made the balance centers really engage, and it's made us ready for more action. And what we're going to work with is an action that works the rotator cuff. And this can be done at a wall. If you're going to use a wall area, you would place your hands at about the height of the shoulder. But for clarity's sake, I'm going to do it right here. I'm going to do it both facing your direction, and then I'll show you a sideways view. Now, I'm going to be kneeling, and I'm going to place my hands so that they're absolutely shoulder distance wide. And to figure out my shoulder distance, when my elbows come down, I'm just going to take my hands around the outer edge of my arm. And then I'll place my palm, so that the palm and then the forearm make a little train track. And then I'm going to lift my elbows completely up. Now what I want to do with my hand is very important. I want to press the fingertip and the knuckle and the heel of the palm, but not put any excessive weight. My thumbs should be able to move because they're not being pressed. And the space underneath the index finger, we're pressing that firmly down. Now once we've done that, we're going to turn the inside of our elbows to face frontward. Now that already might be trying to pull your index finger up off the floor when you turn the inside of the elbows frontward. So don't let that occur. Push down on the index finger, turn the inside of the elbows as upward as you can, and then just very gently bend your elbows coming down and lift your elbows coming up. Now that's a very easy version of this. The palms though have to remain still and flat, especially under that index finger. If I wanted this to be a little bit more active, I could come down with a little bit more weight, my face moving slightly toward my fingertips. Or if I wanted to put my face well beyond the fingertips, I can. That's the front view of it. I'll show you the views from the side as well. We're going to do about 10 of these, or just to the point of feeling fatigue. So here I am again, figuring out my arm width distance, hand width distance, pressing fingertip, knuckle, heel, the palm down. Index finger staying pressed. I turn the inside of the elbows forward. Here's the most easy version of this, is I'm going well back. I am bending the elbows though. I'm not just straight arm pulling backward. I am bending those elbows. Here's a slightly more intense version. And then here's the version that would be a lot harder where the face is going forward. And you're going to be feeling it in the tricep area. You may be feeling it around the back of the arm area as well. All right, so that is working the rotator cuff, the tricep, the bicep, even the pectoral muscles as well. Okay, good. Now when you finished about 10 of those, we're going to be working with our legs. And we're going to be focused on creating an action here in the front of the leg, the quadricep group. So I want you to sit and stretch your legs out. So they'll be forward. Now, in order to brace ourselves, we'll have our hands back behind us, but if you wanted to put your upper shoulders at the wall, you could brace yourself that way too. And we lengthen, pulling backwards so the spine is long. We tighten the thighs, and then we'll slowly lift one leg up. That's going to feel like there's a lot going on right here in the front of the thigh. And we'll lengthen, and we'll slowly lift the other leg up. And then we'll let that come down. Now we're going to go back and forth with that, each leg doing it about 10 times. And the first 3, your body's going to feel like it wants to mutiny on you. And you're just going to have to convince it. Now here's the thing, don't bend your knee and don't round your back, don't collapse in the front of you. Pull back, lengthen, and lift that leg and let it come down. Now I don't bounce it up and let it fall back down. I'm lifting, I pause a moment and come down. And here's the good news, it doesn't matter how high you lift the leg up. It could be just a fraction, or maybe in order to maintain your elongation, you can't yet lift the leg. That would be fine too. So go for trying to create 10 of those actions. So the front of your leg is really gonna feel that, your quads are gonna feel it. Let's see here if I've got, looking at messages. All right, so we want to feel that as an action right there in the front of the leg. Pretty focused in that quadricep, just doing that leg lift. And remembering, although our goal is to create about 10 of these, if your body is threatening you and saying, don't you dare do another one, that's fine too. Because this is, after all, our first round. Now that's good. So we've got the arms, we did something to the leg. Now we're going to do an action for our lumbar spine, our low back region. And I'm going to put us in a face down position. So for this action, our target muscle is the low back. And it's really important, especially if you have any low back issues, that you don't create movements that irritate. But we're going to be doing something that's actually very beneficial for the low back. It's called a low cobra. Our first round is low cobra. Now to do this, I'm going to ask you to come down so that your arms are right beside you, elbows down, because they're going to be used to help pull the body forward. So we're going to pull ourselves forward. That's the first action, the pulling forward. The second action is the pressing down of the pelvis, especially the pubic bone area. Then we're going to pull our belly up off the floor, and it's the fourth thing that we do that lifts our chest upward. Those elbows stay down, and then we come back down. And so let's review. I'm constantly pulling forward. That's going to be upper body action. I'm pushing down the pelvis. We'll feel our seat muscles grip. I'm pulling my belly away from the floor. Nice abdominal action. And then, here we go, chest coming up. It's good to do all of those pieces one by one, just to create a nice engagement. So the pull forward, pelvis down, belly in, back lifts. There shouldn't be any jamming of the low back region. If you feel as you're lifting up that there's compression in the lumbar spine, that low back area, then push your pelvis down more. Don't lift as high. Try and vacuum that belly up off the floor. We're creating an action that will help us create a very strong low back region, but it's in combination with all its partners. It's a combination with the glutes, it's a combination with our transverse abdominis. It's even in combination with the lat muscles that are pulling our chest forward. So that low back part of our core is getting a nice workout with that. And about 10 in a row of those is our goal work. And when we've done that, we're going to come back into a seated position. Here's where we'll need our first prop, and it's either going to be a block that you might have or a pillow if you don't have anything like a block, okay? So both will work for our target. And our target happens to be the muscles here in the inner thigh. The adductor is the name of those muscle groups. And I'm going to have us in a seated position with the knees bent. So I'm seated with my knees bent. Again, my arms are going to help to uplift my spine, and we don't want the back to change once we're in the position. If you needed to, you could have your shoulders against the wall, helping you to maintain that alignment. Now, if you had the block, you would place it not where it's the widest side nor the narrow side, but that mid-range is a good range. And if you have a pillow, well, it's whatever shape of that pillow is because we're going to squeeze it, and that's going to give us a slight resistance. So the thicker and tougher the pillow, the more resistance. I'll show with the pillow versus the block because more people might have that. So our hands are back behind us, elongating, pull in the core, and then squeeze your knees towards each other. And then we let it relax. So we started with our feet and knees and hips all in the same width. We elongated, we pulled in our core, and we squeezed those knees together. I'll show you the side view with it too. So I'm sitting here, elongating, now that low back tilted slightly toward the belly. Elongate, pull in the core, and squeeze. You should be able to feel your inner thigh responding, even if your pillow is very slight. Still moving the legs inward against any resistance at all. Lift and squeeze. And that's good. Having a very strong and vibrant adductor inner thigh structure is quite important for stabilizing our low back region. So that's good. All right. So after about 10 of those, both legs working at the same time. Excellent. Now we're going to be, for our next action, coming onto our back, and we're going to be using very specifically the actions of our core, the side of the waist area. But I'm going to show it to you from a direction where you'll see my knees, because that's where the action is going to be happening. So when you're ready, you'll watch what I'm doing. I'm going to come onto my back, and I'm going to be bringing my legs so that my feet are off the floor. I'll show you the sideways view first so you can see I'm on my back with my feet off the floor. And if you want it to be easier, then your legs are bent like this. If you want it to be a little more difficult, you sort of hold this 90-degree line, and then that's just making you use your hip flexors and your hamstrings and quads a little bit more. So once you get into that position, here's what we're going to do, okay? So we're going to have our arms out to the side, bracing us, and you can see that my knees are level right now. I'm going to tilt my legs, and when I do tilt over to the side, I don't go all the way to the floor. You can see that there's sort of a little stair step now. I'm going to press down my shoulders and reach until my knees are even. I didn't pull my shoulder up off the floor. Coming back to center, those knees are nice and even. Now I'm going to tilt this other way. I tilt, and lo and behold, my legs became uneven. And then I'm going to reach until the knees are even. We're using some deep core structure to make that happen. So we tilt, and we reach. Come back to center. We tilt, and we reach. It may be difficult at first to figure out which muscle I'm using. I'll show you a side view. I want you to see that when I'm doing this, my legs do not come closer to my chest. I tilt, they're uneven. I reach, I'm just reaching that pelvis, shimmying it there. I tilt, and I reach. So they didn't come closer to my chest. And so that is an action that causes us to have to use that deep transverse abdominis muscle group. And it's one that's going to move the back of the pelvis. And that's really nice because it's going to shift us through the sacroiliac joint, one of the joints of our body that happens to be a little bit compressed. And you keep working with that until you've completed 10 on each side. So we work in rounds. When you've completed 10 on each side, you hear the sound of, which is telling us that we've completed all that we were doing in the first round. And we are going to now work in a progressive resistance training method where the next round will have an opportunity for us to work a little bit more intensely. So when you're ready to, you're going to come up, and we're going to explore that first thing we did in round one, which is that inward elbow, a rotator cuff type push-up. And here again, I'll remind us what we did in round one. So in case you've got something happening within your shoulder and you need to reduce the intensity of it, you've got that opportunity to sort of stair-step our way up. So when in round one, what we did is we had the arms, we put them so that they were shoulder distance wide. We really were flattening out the palm of the hand, index finger knuckle, especially cross-pressing, fingertip and heel to palm too. And the elbows stayed narrow. When we lifted our arms, we turned the inside of the elbows narrow, but we pushed the palm down. And we were either bending backward or coming a little forward or coming even more forward. All right, and you can still do that. But for round two, you have the opportunity to take those hands now still, fingertip, knuckle, heel to palm, index finger area pressing, and we'll come into a downward dog, a very bent knee, head between the arms, downward dog position. And in this position, we'll bring the elbows toward the floor and back up again. And you might think, well, that's insane. I don't want to do that. That's fine. If you wanted to be intense but less than that, then you just have face traveling, or a little less intensity, back slightly more, or the more low intensity, way back there. So it's sort of a choose your own adventure kind of action that you're trying to do. And you don't have to do all exactly the same. You might start off saying, yeah, I got everything set, and I'm going to come into this downward dog, and I'll do a few like this. And don't let those elbows flare outward. Don't let that index finger lift. But then maybe you say, well, that's enough of that, and you'll go for something that's a little less intense. So remember, it is the point of fatigue that we're seeking. It is the alignment that we're maintaining, because that's what's going to predict which muscles are active. If the elbows were to flare out, if you were to take the weight off the index finger area, it's not the same activity anymore. So work with a goal of keeping that index finger pressed firm, moving slowly and steadily with the intensity that allows you the alignment. And so that's hard to know at first. You got to experiment, you got to play with it and experiment with it, and then you'll find what you can do, what is your level right now. And hopefully you've done something that has made your arms feel like they're fatiguing, maybe a little bit of lactic acid, but with no increasing discomfort. And so we do 10 of those, and when you're done with that, we are actually going to come into a standing position. Now, but let me remind you, just watch me a moment. You can come into the standing position. If there is a struggle going on with your knee, our target muscle is going to be, again, the quadricep group here in the front of the thigh, but I'm sensitive to the idea that someone's knees might be a problem. So I remind you that in round one, what we did is we sat, and of course, you would love doing another round of this, I have no doubt, leg coming up like so. Ooh, that would be great. Or you say, oh, anything but that. It's possible that you might be ready to do a lunging action from a standing position. And here's how we'll do it. And indeed, this could be modified, but you've got to make sure that your knees are comfortable with it. So we stand, and we'll take a step forward into a lunge position, not going very low, and then I'm stepping backward. Now that might be too much for your knee. And then I do the other side. I step forward, coming into a bit of a lunge, but not very low, and stepping backward. Now you might just step forward and keep the back leg completely straight. The front knee is not allowed to go over its ankle, and then see if you can step backward. And that is work too. Or as I said, you could step, bend the knee a little bit, but not very much, and come back. So we're going to do 10 on each side is our goal. And if this is not working for you, then the seated leg lift, or perhaps you're saying, well, actually, I felt this was more of a challenge, and I really want to be super challenged today, so I'm going to do the seated leg lift. I don't know how many takers I'll get on doing another round of the seated leg lift if there was any other thing to do, but you work and you create the action, but pay attention to how your knees feel. So if you're going into that lunge, and your knee, if your knee is allowed to move forward of the ankle when you go into the lunge, so if you step forward and you let that knee travel forward, oh, that's not good. That's not good. There's got to be some sort of a stop sign that you stop that knee so it's right over the ankle. Then you can let the other knee lower a little bit so you don't take it to the point where you're feeling this knee is overshooting the other ankle line. You gotta be very careful with that as we're going back and forth. And of course, not just knees, it could be something going on in the ankles that may not appreciate that type of action. And it's good, it's gonna bring the heart rate up if you're doing the activities like that, and that's good. So that's a little bit of more of a higher intensity activity with it as well. All right, nicely done. And when you're ready for that, or through with those 10 rounds, then we're going to be doing another Cobra, and I'll show you where we were in our Cobra in the beginning round. So when you're ready to, we'll be in a face down position. So for round 2, the Cobra could be a little bit more intensified. So I'll be coming into a face down position, and my arms started off. So in round 1, we did the Cobra this way. The elbows were down. We pulled forward, pressed the pelvis, vacuumed the belly away from the floor, and then we did a little bit of a lift. Now for round 2, you take the arms wider and slightly more forward. We're still going to leave the elbows down though. We pull our body forward, we push the pelvis down, we pull the belly in, and with the arms more forward, we're able to lift up just a little higher. Now it does put more pressure on the back, so you got to keep the pelvis pushed down and the belly pulled in, and don't lift any higher than feels comfortable. So again, this round 2, our arms, instead of being right next to us, are a little more forward. Elbows pretty much lined up with the shoulders. Palms still down, elbows still down. I pull forward, pelvis presses, belly pulls off the floor, and then we come up a reasonable amount. It just gives us a little bit more potential of a lift. But you can still have the arms close to you and have a little bit more support from those arms, a little bit lower of a lift as you do the second round of the back extension. And so that's really good. As I said, great training for the low back area, but not for you to feel that you're jamming your back. You don't want to feel back-related discomfort in any way at all. It's easy to avoid it. All you do is make sure you're pulling forward, so you're elongating your spine. You're pushing the pelvis down, especially the pubic bone, to try and make sure that you don't jam your back joints. You're pulling the belly in to act like a nice little lock, and then you're lifting up a measured amount. And that should be enough for you to feel there's a little bit of work in the back, but there's not an overwhelming amount. It's not jamming you in any particular way. So low Cobra and this mid Cobra, as I call it, really great for training a low back area to become strong, for stretching out some areas and to liberate, to create a little bit more space in between those spinal joints. And that's good. Now, when you're ready to, when you've finished out those Cobras, we're going to be on our side, and we're going to be creating action with the structure of our inner thigh. And this is how we'll do it. We're going to be on the side, and our target is actually going to be the lower leg. So I'm going to come onto my side. Now, this might be another reason you might want a pillow or something, or a block right there. Your head can be all the way down. I typically prop my head up, but that may or may not be comfortable. So your head can be in whatever position you like. Now the upper leg, I want it to be in a very specific position. I'd like it to be forward at about 90 degrees, and the big toe side of the foot is against the floor. We're trying to make sure that we've got the pelvis stacked one side over the other side. The bottom leg is going to be straight, and its little toe edge is going to be against the floor, almost like we're standing on that leg. The knee is straight, and it's not turned in and it's not turned out. Now we're going to pull in our core and lift that bottom leg up a comfortable amount, and then we're going to let the leg come back down. So we're using that inner thigh to lift the leg up and let it come back down. So upper leg is forward and remains on the ground, big toe side of the foot there. Bottom leg, little toe side of the foot, bottom knee completely straight as we lift the leg up. Now in the first round, we used our block or pillow, and you could do it from a side resting position if you wanted to. If you didn't want to lift the leg, you could just squeeze your knees into that pillow and then softly release that action. That would be a very reasonable compromise to the activity. So you could do another round of the pillow or the block squeeze. Or as I say, have the legs in this position, upper leg about 90 degrees. You know, it does make a difference if the leg is bent or in another position. The back is not as activated in the same way, I should say. So this particular way keeps the pelvis more aligned when we're creating this. And of course, you kind of guessed it. If you did 10 on one side, well, we're only halfway done. Oh, joy. We get to flip over when we've done one side, and we get to do the other side. So, and that would be true whether you were lifting the leg or whether you were squeezing that pillow. You would flip over and do side two. So get your head comfortable, whatever that means for you as far as your comfort level. Your upper leg goes straight in front of you at about 90 degrees if you can. The big toe side of that foot is on the floor. The bottom leg is the little toe side of the foot, and that leg is as if we're standing on it. The bottom of the foot is even flat, and we're going to work to lift the leg up and hold it in that position and then bring it down. Now, not everyone's leg is going to come up very high. It would be enough just to contract the inner thigh. There's an added benefit for actually lifting that bottom leg up away from the floor, is that it's stretching the outside of our hip. It's known as the IT band or iliotibial band. So when this leg is lifted up, we are stretching that band of fiber that runs from our hip to the space below our knee. And this can take a lot of pressure off the knee. Very good activity, not just for the back, but also for our knee. So that's a good workout for the inner thigh. But as I said, if we wanted to have the pillow between the knees and squeezing them instead of lifting the leg, that would be a very adequate substitute. And so very good. You know, round two, we've increased the potential intensity of things. And sometimes, though, you may or may not feel that one thing's more intense than the other. You're always welcome to go back to first round activities. And although our goal number is around 10, you can do a few more, you can do a few less if you like. And this is going to bring us now to what we're doing very specifically for the deep core. And we're going to do another tilted action where we'll be on our back. So you'll want to first watch what I'm doing so that you can duplicate the action yourself. All right, so get into a position where you can see when you're ready. And I'm going to be on my back. Again, we're going to be focusing on what I'm doing with my legs, but the action is actually happening within the structure of my pelvis. So I start off with the feet and the knees hip distance wide. I bring the legs up, and I can either have the knees quite bent, and I'll show you from the side here in a moment, or have the legs in a 90-degree line. Now, before we tilted to one side and tilted to the other side, now we're not going to tilt at all. We are going to press our shoulders down, and one side of the pelvis is going to press down, but the other side of the pelvis we're going to lift up. And you can see I made my knees uneven with that lift. We release. I push this side of the pelvis down, the other side I lift up. It's actually lifted up away from the floor a little bit. I'll show you from the side view. So from the side, I'm not bringing the legs closer to my chest. It's very easy for the body to think that's happening. So my arms are out to the side. I'm going to press down and lift the other side. You can see my legs are still the same distance from my chest. I push down and I lift up. My shoulders stay down, both of them, but one side of my pelvis is lifted away from the floor. The other side of the pelvis is lifted away from the floor. This is also rather difficult to figure out at first. If you preferred to do the side-to-side movement and then reach, having made the knees uneven by tilting the side, reach them even, that would be reasonable. So in our round one, we were doing this. The knees were even, we tilted to the side, they were uneven, we reached. That's the same action as staying in the center and no tilt, we're just reaching. All right, we round one tilted and reached, but this round we're just no tilt, we're just reaching. And that's getting a very deep contraction, deep transverse abdominis, also very deep lumbar spine area is active too. the transversus spinalis group, including those little rotatories muscles. So in case you're keeping track of every muscle you use, the way we entertain ourselves when we're sheltering in place. And that's good. We want each side to explore this 10 times. So we get a good, strong activation. Now remember, if it's very easy for you, if you're feeling like 10 is just really not a workout at all, my advice is to slow it way, way, way down. Just make each action go slower from the beginning to the end. Pause in the most intense version of it. Slowly come out of it. That's a great way to make yourself very satisfyingly exhausted with your action. And when you've finished out your 10th repetition of that, you'll hear the bell. This is a sheep bell. And that is the signal that says that we did what we were going to do in round 2, and we're getting ready for the 3rd round. Now, we're progressing. We're making things a bit more difficult in each round, because even though the muscles are getting more tired, fatigue is not a problem. In fact, making muscle safely fatigue, exhaust that muscle safely, is the goal of growing stronger. And each thing we're doing, although we're isolating muscle areas, we're using the body in a companionship. And so these are sort of total body activities for us. And it's really good for, yes, targeting our target muscle, but also making sure all the companion muscles are doing their job in support and stability. And that's one of the reasons it's quite important for us to have the alignment of our structure. So we're going to start off with the rotator cuff push-up again. Now I'm going to remind you of the alignment principles, because this one is very important. That index finger area, that space underneath it, should be pushing downward. And this is going to transform the structure of the hand. Instead of letting the hand curve into a C shape, we're going to be using the muscles that press the hand. It's really great for the structure of your hands and fingers and your wrist to keep that palm pressed flat. We're going to be creating an inward elbow. External rotation is what's happening in the shoulder as the elbow goes inward. So we're going to be pressing that index finger and creating that external rotation posture. And then we're going to be straightening and bending the arm. And so all of that seems very simple until we put it into practice. Now, the way that we did it in round 1, I'll show that. I'll show round 2, and then I'll show you what we're doing for round 3. So the hands are made shoulder distance wide. And it's really important that I check each time, because my brain may not want me to put my arms wide, my hands wide enough apart. So I push the index finger, the fingertip, and the heel of the palm. The thumbs are free to move. I lift the elbows and I turn the inside of the elbows frontward. And in round 1, you could just do a very gentle downward and upward, especially if in round 3 you're really tired, you could revert back to this. If I wanted to be a little bit more, my face would go sort of toward that space between the hands. And if I wanted to be even stronger, my face would be going to the space slightly beyond those fingers. And that was the round 1. Now in round 2, we took this and we had the hands still flat and the inside of the elbow still facing frontward. We were in a downward dog, head between the arms with the knees bent. And then we brought the elbows down and up. And that's pretty strong too. But for round 3, what we're going to do is we're going to position our body so that it's in a kneeling plank. So I'm going to stretch my legs back into a full plank and bring my knees down with my pelvis forward. That's a kneeling plank. I'm going to make sure that, again, I have that index finger knuckle firmly down, fingertips and heel of the palm, thumb pulling toward the feet, inside of the elbows facing frontward. That's already quite a challenge. And then I'm going to bend my elbows, and I'm not going to let my elbows get wide. I know in a regular push-up, the elbows flare, but this is not a regular push-up. This is an external rotator cuff push-up. So there it is. I'll show you from the front view. In all the cases, no matter what we're doing with the body, the hands are about the same. So shoulder distance wide, index finger pressing, thumbs free to move, inside of the elbows facing frontward. I'm in my plank. I bring my knees down to make it a little bit reasonable. And then I bring my hands. I should bend my elbows. And my hands stay flat. I don't let the index finger line of my hand lift up. And I'm not bringing my chest down. In fact, because of the position of the arms, we cannot bring our chest all the way to the floor. If your body is sliding between your arms, oh, how clever of you. to have figured a way to avoid your external rotator cuff, you gotta go, and it's not very much of a movement, it's strenuous, and that's why there's different levels of this. Choose the level that you can control. If you need to back off and do a slightly less intense version of this, then by all means, you do that, all right? So you don't force your body into something. If you're feeling negative sensations, discomfort increasing, anywhere in the hand or thumb, anywhere in the wrist or elbow or shoulder or neck or anywhere else, then you're going to need to back off, and maybe you've done enough today with it. You just have to make sure that your body agrees that you can go forward. And so when we reach a satisfying thing, and where would we maybe feel it? If we're bending the elbows and straightening them, we're going to feel it maybe right here in the tricep muscle. Rotator cuff, external rotator is in the shoulder blade, but a lot of people don't feel that. They usually feel some fatigue, perhaps somewhere in this level. And then our hand, our forearm would be feeling the fatigue of reaction if we were doing all those things together. And that's really good. Now, our next action is again to target the front of the leg. And I'll go through, I'll show you what we did round 1 and round 2, and then I'll give you the advice for round 3. So for our quadricep group in round 1, we had our legs forward. We elongated, and with legs straight, we lifted the leg up. And so that was really good for activating the front of the leg, the quadricep. In round 2, we were standing, and we did a step forward, knee over ankle, and then we had the option of letting this knee come down a bit, and then we were stepping backward. And so here it is on the other side. The knee could come down if I wanted, but my other knee didn't go past the ankle. Now for round 3, we're going to be doing a step backward. And in this one, it's a little bit of a balance challenge, and I'm not going to be stepping very far back. It's very important that my front knee remain over the ankle. So your choice for round 3 would have you from a standing position, stepping back, and setting this knee and this knee into a bend. Now on this, we would stay on this one side, and we would come down and up. Now I did touch the floor, but you don't have to. And as I did that, this knee was not allowed to move forward. So there's a lot going on. Now you don't have to do all 10 on one side. You can do a few and then step forward. And here's the other side. I step backward. Now I'm not going to a full lunge position because I'm going to remain balanced on the ball of the back foot. The front knee bent over the ankle. And then I'm coming down, just a light touch. I don't rest, and maybe we don't touch at all. And when I come down, this front knee is not allowed to move forward. So I'm doing a few in a row with an idea that I'd be doing 10 of them. Now remember, you don't have to do that version because, oh my goodness, there's a lot going on in the quads if you did that. You could just be satisfied with the step and knee over the ankle and a slight bend and then a step backward. That would build up some of the strength you need to do that other version. We can do the seated leg lift, or we can do this version where we step back, but not too far, stay balanced on the ball of the foot, make sure knee is over ankle, back knee is bent, and then we come down and we're doing repeated touches. Although technically you could do just one touch and then change sides. And then we step backward, balance on the ball of the foot. It is a bit of a balance challenge. Knee over the ankle and then touching. Remember what the front knee does? We got to pay attention to that. We do not want it shooting forward and thus destabilizing, stressing the structure of our knee. And so you should be saying, oh my gosh, I've got quadriceps after all of that. And heart rate, if you're doing that last one, is definitely going to climb a little bit with the intensity of that action. So good, another benefit of that to have a little bit of an interval training within there. And that's good. So at the end of that, whatever we did, we're saying, okay, yeah, I'd like to stop working my quadriceps, which is great. And so we're going to, we're going to come down onto the floor, and we're going to, again, use a position for the low back. And it's the higher version of the Cobra. So we started with low, and then middle, and now high Cobra. In all of them, we pull our body, and it's really important that we create elongation of the spine because we're going to be creating back extension. What back extension does is it causes a shortening of the joint structure in the back. So the vertebrae would be naturally pushed closer to one another. If we don't elongate first, we're actually going to jam those joints into each other and create discomfort, a jamming sensation in the back, which we want to avoid. And get away from jamming by simply using that pull. So we come down and we have our arms beside us. So here's the low that we did in round one. We have the elbows next to us. We pull our body toward the front constantly. We don't give up on that. At the same time, we push our pelvis down, pull our belly in, and we create a comfortable amount of lift. Now in round two, the arm position was different. We put our arms a little wider with the elbows about level with the shoulders. And we pulled our body toward the front. We pushed the pelvis down. We pulled the belly in. And while still pulling forward, we were bringing ourselves up a little higher. Still nice and stable. Pretty strong action in the glutes as well. Now for this third round, there's just a slight change in this. So round three, arms in the same position as round two. We pull our body forward. We press the pelvis down. We pull the belly in. And as we come up, we also lift the elbows up. So we're coming higher, but we're still pulling toward the front here. Don't push yourself. Pull yourself. It's quite a difference. And your arms are going to work out at the same time. So again, arms wide. We pull forward, press the pelvis, especially the pubic bone, pull in the belly. And while all of that's still happening, we lift, and we lift our elbows up into a higher cobra. Now, you may find that the high cobra is just not going to work for your back. It's just going to jam you, and you don't want that. So don't let your back jam. Stay low enough that you can keep the pubic bone pushed down and pull your belly in. It's a lot to remember at once, especially when the body is in a state where it's getting more and more fatigued with everything we do. And yet it's absolutely worth it because it's going to train the back. But remember, there's 3 levels. And even though I'm using 1 level for each round, it doesn't mean you have to progress up to the next level unless your body's ready for it. So the whole thing, no matter what level, you're pulling your body toward that front edge of your mat. You're pulling your chest away from your pelvis. You're pressing your pelvis, especially the pubic bone line, down to keep the joints from jamming. You're pulling in the belly to act very solid, lock the body in place, and then you're lifting your chest upward. That's the use of the back muscles, that third and final point of that. So great training for the low back and something that's really quite beneficial no matter what's going on in our low back area. But you'll have to create the modifications that are right for you. All right, so there was our third round of Cobra, and we're going to do our third round of the inner thigh, the hip adductor muscle. And this is the one where I said, hey, at the beginning of class, you would need a chair. So let me show you what I have planned for us in using the chair, okay? So the chair that I'm using is a simple chair. It's got no arms, although if your chair had arms, you could still use it. It's got a space beneath. This is why it can't just be something like a couch. You got to be able to fit your leg underneath. And what it's going to do is it's going to encourage us to lift our lower leg a little bit higher. It's going to give us sort of a target for the lower leg. So I'm going to be positioning myself on my side, and it takes a little bit of, maneuvering to get there. And my upper leg, by the way, head and neck made comfortable, shoulder over shoulder, hip over hip. I'm taking my upper leg and I'm just placing it on top. Now, in this situation, move that a little closer there. In this situation, my upper leg could be bent. I'm really going to try to not use the upper leg at all. I don't want to push down into the chair. I'm just putting my leg up there, getting it out of the way. My bottom leg is going to be nice and straight, that little toe side of the foot against the floor. So you can sort of see my position. My upper leg is just out of the way, and it's not really flexed forward. It could be straight, but it's probably going to be bent if you're in normal chair height. And then I'm going to lift my leg up, hold it, and then just let it come back down. So that's asking me to lift up a little higher. Now, it's very natural for me to want to push down this upper leg. Instead, I'm going to make the upper leg just as passive as it can be as I lift up and I come back down again. Now, it's not unusual for this hip that's on the floor to feel the substance of the floor beneath it. So if you need a little bit of an extra padding underneath you, that would not be unusual at all. So we're just creating this inner thigh lift. If anything about it is becoming unpleasant in the back or anything like that, then adjust your position a little bit. Maybe you don't lift the leg up quite as high, right? It's just a sort of it gives us a reference point of how we're lifting, and it puts the hips in a slightly different position since the leg is not in the 90-degree forward line anymore. So do pay attention, and remember, if you're thinking, no, I don't like that, you could put the leg forward in the 90-degree line and lift up, and that might give you more stability. So you may say, okay, that's completely different than having my leg on the chair, and I like that better. Well, that's fine. That's fine. We're just working to create action and using different techniques to create the change of angle and fiber. And then when we've done one side, well, okay, we're going to do the other side too. So whenever you get finished with side one, which may take you a little bit longer because you had to, acquire the chair and get set up on the chair and test it out and see if the chair method was going to work for you. So each of the rounds has different considerations, and there's a reasoning behind them. I'm trying to choose things that will be a little bit more intense for each round, but it's also going to have to be that we select the things that are appropriate for us. So now when I'm ready for the second round, I first make sure that my shoulder's over shoulder, my knees are lined up, so my hip is over my hip. I place the upper leg, and that's where I do the maneuvering of the chair until I get it just right, just that right feel. And the bottom leg then goes straight, and the little toe edge of my bottom foot is on the floor. And then we bring the leg up, and we just hold it up there for a moment or two, and then we let it come back down. I'm trying not to push this leg down. I'm trying to keep it very, very passive so that it's just the bottom leg that's being used. I'm not trying to push my leg into the chair, just up there on that chair. And this is, as I said, a pretty good activator. It's going to stretch the outside of the hip, that IT band. So this is good for the low back. It's good for the knee. Remember, if you were thinking that the chair just didn't work or you didn't have a chair, then the upper leg being forward, just like we did in round two, is a really good posturing action too. And they're both really great. Now, again, which one is better? Well, the one that you can do comfortably, the one that will work for you, that's the one that you can hold alignment, that's the one that you want. And if by now you're starting to feel as if, well, okay, you're getting a little tired from the actions that we did, well, that would be normal. We have been working out for close to an hour. All right, our last core, focused on the core action, is going to be another tilting of the leg. We're going to be on our back, but you'll want to watch what I'm doing first. So if you can't see your screen, get yourself in position. I'm going to be on the back again. I'll remind you what we did round one and round two so that you can see it in comparison to the third round. So we're again going to be on our back, and I'm going to have the knees bent. Remember, knees could be completely bent or at a 90-degree bend. And in round one, what we did is we tilted, the legs became uneven. We reached, and then we brought them back to center just that way. We tilted, the legs became uneven. We reached, we brought them back to center. In round two, there was no tilt. We pushed down the shoulders, we pushed down one side of the pelvis, we lifted up, and then we did that on the other side. Now, round three just has a different component added into it. So I'm going to tilt to the side, my knees becoming uneven. Now, there's two different directions my pelvis could go. I can reach to make it even, but I could keep on the side and pull my pelvis backward until it's even more uneven. And then I'll come back. So it's just really moving the pelvis in two different directions. So I'm going to tilt to the side. My knee was uneven. I reached. I kept my shoulder down. I'm pulling backward, and then I'm coming back to center. So there's a backward translation with that. I'll show you the side view of this. So we have the legs in position, and I'm tilting to the side. I'm reaching, and I'm pulling backward. There's really, the legs are the same distance from my chest. I come back to center. I tilt to the side. I reach, the shoulder stays down. I pull backward, and we come back to center. Right? So we just, we do that kind of shimmy action, that forward and backward progress of the structure of the pelvis. It's really important to create this kind of action for the structure of the pelvis, that very lowest joint connecting spine and the pelvis together, called the sacroiliac joint, is a target of movement in these actions. And this is great for resolving some of the tendencies of that joint to be misaligned. Our tendency of sitting, that's the joint in the body that receives the most compressive force. So if we can align it, if we can move it, if we can exercise the muscles that control it, we can create relief, but also pay attention to the way you feel. It's a very common area in that low back, or that triangle piece bone known as the sacrum, connecting to the side of the pelvis. That sacroiliac joint is a place where we might feel some sensation already before we even begin to exercise. So stay in control of it and work it gently. And that is great. Now, you're going to remain on your back for our warm down. All right, so we're going to begin, when you're ready to, we're going to begin the warm down by just now letting the legs rock side to side. And when we're not worried about whether the knees stay even or uneven, we're just going to go as far to the left or far to the right as we can with the shoulders staying down. We're just rocking over the pelvis. And here's what's interesting. When the knees are closer to the chest, there's more pressure, more like a massage of the floor against the low back region. And if you move your knees further from the chest, the massaging action goes more into the pelvis structure. And so you can move the legs further and further away. I showed you that view, and I'll show you this view in case you're wondering to see how it's done. And so when the legs are really close to the chest, that's when the body is receiving that pressure, mostly in the low back. And then I move a little further away. It's on the back of the pelvis, and then even further away, it's getting closer and closer to the seat muscle and the tailbone region. And you can sort of zigzag your way back and forth with that twister. Great way to relax the body. Hey, reclining is a great way to relax the body if you've been exercising. And so this is a good activation, a good thing to do as we go through it. And as you're continuing to set just a bit of a warm down with yourself, now is the time that I tell you that what we do in class is basically just 1/3 of what we need to do to train the body to become strong. Because activity is great. It is instruction. It is doing some things. It is challenging the body. It's fatiguing muscles, and it's slightly disrupting the muscle tissue. But it's the post-class that is absolutely vital. So we don't want to have back-to-back intensity. Let's just say that you said, oh, I haven't been working out, so I'm going to work out really hard today and really hard tomorrow and really hard the next day. In fact, all this time that I'm sheltering in place, I'm going to work out hard every day. Well, that's a mistake, because what happens is that your body becomes exhausted. It can't protect itself. It's not ready for the next intense workout. And you might end up with a common ending when we work back-to-back intensities. That's an exercise-induced injury. So don't let that be it. Let your next day be something that's a little calmer. Go for the walk, do some gentle yoga, and things like that if you felt today's class was intense. And that's something else. Everyone's different. What you find intense might be what someone else finds is just a warm-up. And the same thing, what someone else finds intense, you might find is not very intense for you. So you have to judge it based according to what your body feels. But here's something else. We've got to sleep. We have to have at least a session of sleep before we're ready for our body to work out hard. So a couple of sleep cycles work really great, because in the sleep cycle, we're reducing inflammation in our body. We're repairing tissue when we sleep, and we're building proteins. And proteins are used not just for muscle cells, but also for immune cells. So it's absolutely vital that we go after that 7 to 10 hours of sleep. And it doesn't have to be all accomplished at night. The sleep cycle is 1.5 to 2 hours. So if you didn't get enough sleep at night, if you can get a 1.5 or 2 hour nap, boy, you're adding to your sleep cycles and you're doing just fine. But the thing that we have the most control over is what we do in the next hour. And now's the time to give your body that protein-based meal. We want 30 grams of protein, and that's easy to accomplish. It's a simple serving size of most foods we normally eat, such as chicken. It'd be about 3 to 4 ounces of chicken, or 4 to 5 ounces of red meat. It could be 6 ounces of fish, or 6 ounces of fattier meats like ham or sausage. It could be a cup of cottage cheese. And those are the ones that contain in what would be a normal serving size, 30 grams. But we can also combine things. 1 egg, a lot of people eat eggs, and that's great, but 1 egg is 6 grams of protein. And unless you're eating 5 eggs, you're not going to be getting your 30 grams. A cup of milk, great protein, it's only 8 grams per cup. An ounce of cheese, very tasty protein, but it's somewhere between 5 to 9. So combine things together. There are a lot of apps out there that you can get that will show you the protein, And that's your focus. You want 3 of those protein meals, 30 grams, 3 times a day. That's 90 grams total, but delivered to you in 30-gram portions. So your body does its protein synthesis. That has what it needs to build the proteins it uses for muscles and immune cells. So keep that in mind as you're going as well. Excellent work. Great job, everyone.